chwilę teraz poświęcimy warsztatom, które przed chwilą mieliśmy okazję śledzić, warsztatom, które prowadzone były z naszymi studentami. Później zrobimy chwileczkę przerwy, żeby znowu przestawić krzesła na prezentację tekstu Bernadety i obejrzenie filmu. Bernardy. I z powrotem wrócimy do tego ustawienia, żeby podsumować nasze spotkanie, naszą konferencję. Przede wszystkim... Have you got any problems with the response? Przede wszystkim bardzo serdecznie chciałbym podziękować profesorowi Gajewskiemu, który już niestety musiał opuścić Białystok, oraz panu za prowadzenie warsztatów z naszymi studentami. Dla mnie jako teoretyka, który zazwyczaj śledzi czy ogląda już gotowy produkt sceniczny albo idzie na spektakl, który jest efektem wielu lat pracy aktorów na scenie, takie pierwsze przymiarki do rozpoznawania nowych technik, nowych przestrzeni, nowych sposobów zdobywania wiedzy są odświeżające, bo zmuszają mnie do cofnięcia się o ten jeden krok do tych czasów, kiedy sam rozpoczynałem pracę w teatrze, czy rozpoczynałem moją podróż z teatrem, może w ten sposób, i szukałem swojego miejsca, szukałem czegoś, co mnie zainteresuje, co mnie zainspiruje przede wszystkim do szerszej pracy. I to była wielka przyjemność śledzenia tych dwóch różnych rodzajów prowadzenia warsztatów. Ja rozumiem, że jeden i drugi to był tylko i wyłącznie wstęp do poznania metody, ale zupełnie zarysowany na poziomie najprostszym. Co miało uświadomić studentom te przeprowadzone przez was warsztaty?
That we are surrounded with invisible forces and we can use them to work. As I described with the aircraft, there is the wind already, and you have to find out how to manage the wings of the aircraft, that it really can lift, and how much power it needs, and so on. So, I've been dealing also a lot with quantum physics. And quantum physics is probably a thing which is very close to these experiences of Chekhov, but from a scientific way of exploring the world. And the modern quantum physicists, they always ask, we need a new way of thinking. Because the reality is very different than our concept of this old image of physics. There is, we are outside exploring the world and the object is there and we have no reaction or connection to that. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
But we are in the process and we influence the process all the time. A few years ago I directed Faust by Goethe, and we were working about the subject so much because there's an interesting sentence in it: the sun is singing in its old way. And you can imagine asking yourself, why is the sun singing? I cannot hear this sound, but it's there. And if you look at scientists, they make a lot of researches, and there is a real something like a sound, but you cannot hear it. There is a sound. And so we are surrounded by a lot of influences which we cannot really catch, but they are there. And when we were making researches on our Faust play, I was visiting some lectures of a quantum physicist from Leipzig. And he began his lecture with the question, how many telephone calls do I have in my hand? What do you think? 1,000? And how many TV programs do I have in my hand? They are here, but we cannot sense them, but they are there. We need something like an organ to understand these things. And one hand, our hand is something like an organ like this, and then you can catch these vibrations and these waves, electronic waves. But so we are surrounded by much more sounds or waves or whatever, and if we understand these waves a little bit, then we can watch with that. Very easy. And like a painter. The painter is using 6 colors and then he's painting this picture. He's mixing them and whatever. Yeah? And so you have, this is the reason why I was pointing to that point that Chekhov's calling it a technique. It's a technique. It's not, yeah, you have to do that and then you can see the result will be that, if you are open to it. This was the point I wanted to show them, that there are some forces, and if we pay attention to them, then we can work with them. And then also the question of meeting an object, that the object has a radiation, it has a sound, it has a music, it has waves. If we're watching the light, I can see it only because waves are coming to me. And my eye can understand these waves. So I can switch on the light and switch it off. I can close my eyes. If I don't want to see it, I can open it and then I will see something. And so you can also work with atmospheres and gestures and so on. Is this an answer for you?
Yeah, of course. It's very interesting. And I got the question: when you get the workshops with new people, how long you spend with them to catch these forces?
It depends on them.
Sometimes it depends on them, but you got some process to be sure that they are get the point. They really knew what you are talking about, because
they can catch it very quickly. After 3 months, they have it already.
3 months. We got 1 hour, so you know this was very fast.
Sorry, in hours.
Today we got just 1 hour or 2 hours.
No.
It was very fast. So they just got
3 months. We are in our studio. We're working each day 4 or 5 hours, 5 days a week. After 3 months, they can deal with it.
And this is the end of the process, or you go just the first part.
Yeah, but this is already the key. It's not so much. Of course, I have to understand the character a little bit, and I have to look through his eyes, that I understand how the character will deal in the situation of the play. This is, of course, we touched this point many times. This is, of course, what Stanislavski, I in the situation of the character, or the character in the situation of the character. Of course, one has to understand it, but if you use the character also as something which is radiating something, which can inspire you, then you just have to be open. And of course you have to concentrate on it. If you have a monkey mind jumping away from this object, then you will not catch anything, of course. But you can take a flower, smell, and then you can really experience. And we call this etheric oils. There you can sense it already. This energy surrounding an object. Yeah. And the same is happening with the words. Because for me, this is the most important thing, the words itself. They have already a power. We don't think about it, but if somebody cannot give an order what you have to do, nobody knows what he has to do. There are only always words behind it. This is the starting point, the words. As in the Bible it is said, everything is created through words. And in quantum physics they call it, everything is created through information. And this is a power. And if we start to understand this, that it's a power and not a dry, analytical word, then we can be touched by it.
Yeah, but also very powerful in this genre is in imagination.
everything is based on the imagination during both of those workshops.
You still say words. Imagine
Yeah, but we can imagine not only the word. Yeah, we express by the words our imagination, our feelings, our everything what is around us. But I think the basic of the actor is his imagination, and you give the examples of this also.
Yeah, of course. But it's starting with the word. Starting with the word, which is creating. If I, for example, say, imagine the storm on the Bastille. If this, you immediately have an image. It's rising up. Most people have an image. If they know the history a little bit, they immediately see a castle and see people running to that point. And if you add a word, for example, an atmosphere, you say storm to the Bastille, but you add, for example, the atmosphere of hate. Immediately you have different pictures. You see faces, the inner eye is focusing like a camera, and they see faces with, you see people how they kill each other. We had this experience a few days ago with one student, and one student from Russia, she said, I cannot watch these images, they are too strong for me. I have to stop here. Yeah. So you have not always nice pictures, they can be also very hard.
But according to me, it has something in common with psychotherapy. It's like psychotherapy.
It's very approach to that. And new psychology is using this world of images to heal people. On one hand, it is like that, but yeah.
Are there any questions?
I just wanted to say, I suppose, on a very concrete level, the idea of invisible forces, we can also understand that in a very simple way, in the sense of what Chekhov is trying to teach the actor, in the sense of, well, we've heard a lot about love this weekend, and Chekhov would say, what is love? It's a constant inner movement towards the person you love. It's a movement inside towards that person. And what is that? That's a kind of it's a kind of energy, or it's the inner life moving. And so that's something very simple, I think, that all of us can know, but that Chekhov is asking us to work with that invisible. Jobs was talking about the inner body, but there's this sense of what is the inner life, and how can we work with it very consciously and explicitly and have it at our command. So that's another kind of very simple, concrete sense of the invisible forces, I would say, that I think Chekhov is talking about.
I want to add something to the question of psychotherapy, because the student has to learn to control the images, and that it's not everything is possible. He has to, like the cameras here, you focus on this, and if you don't like it, you switch it off, or you focus on that. That they get a mind control, and they are not lost. Yeah. But as I said yesterday, this little remark from Steiner that people are bringing images from the spiritual world before they were born, I don't know if it's like that, but it's an interesting idea. But he says then, and I think I lost this sentence yesterday, I did not say this, that we as teachers have to go to the people that we locken, was heißt locken?
Listen.
That we help the people to have inner images. Otherwise, these forces who are creating these images, they try to destroy the people. And if you look at the world, how many wars are there guided through inner images? All the right-wing parties, they have a big interest that the people have huge images. They are working with images, and so you can use them in different ways. Of course, to make a political direction clear, that you create images like you see the flood of refugees is destroying our country, we will have no place to live anymore, these images. So you can also ask if these images are true or not, yeah? Or if they are a bit your own images and they have no connection to reality. This is an interesting point, if these images are an illusion or if they are true.
But for me, every image is connected with an emotion.
Yes.
And when you create this image, you purge yourself from this emotion. I don't know how to say it, even in Polish. But it is like you put this emotion outside of you, thanks to this image. Something like this, like during the psychotherapy.
Yeah, no.
When you have to, purge your soul, purge yourself from, I don't know, difficult emotions, feelings.
Yeah, you see, on one hand, yeah, that's sweet, but it's not so important to show the emotions, to show the images. Of course, they are connected to the emotions, they provoke emotions, but you, as an actor, you cannot get the emotions pure. You have to do something. You have to think something, or you have to act. But thinking is doing already. You have to create something. And this, of course, will provoke emotion. My acting teacher told me, you see, you have to help the people that they get their fantasy back. Because many professions, they lose it. If you're working on a computer 8 hours a day like this, and watching a space like this, you're in a dungeon a little bit. So who will open you and try to move you? And you can do this, of course, through a directed way with images. A movie is directed images as well. Yeah? They choose which images which combine and make a composition out of it. And this is for a director and for an actor the same thing. You have images, you make a composition out of it. You think about the question, how long will I show this image? Because I have to catch the moment when the audience is bored, and so on. So the question of rhythm is suddenly very important. Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Sorry.
I want to ask you, how can you, as a teacher, understand that they really understand you and really see these images? Can't they fake?
They can, but it's not so easy, because I've been teaching now for 35 years, I sometimes see if they have an image or not. I cannot say if their image is right or not. I cannot. They describe it sometimes, but if their concentration is lost and they're starting to think about their hand, suddenly I see, oh, he has a huge hand, so he's thinking about his hand. But the contents of the image I cannot judge or understand, but we can share the experience. This makes people very rich, because everybody has his own perspective. It's a funny thing. I once came to a university, perhaps this is an answer for you, but it's connected to that. And everybody was angry with his comedy tones and so on. And so we started to work on a play, and everybody described his view on this situation. Yeah? If I, for example, say the word castle, and you close your eyes and you need to wait what is happening inside you, everybody will have a different image of a castle. Yeah? And if you share these experiences, suddenly the people say, ah, that's interesting, you see it like this, you see it, so it provokes an interest for the other people. And for me, it's sometimes a big mystery how people can talk to each other, because they have so different images. On one hand, it's like it's a mystery why they understand each other. On the other hand, if they share these images, they can get very rich, because they get a lot of different views, and not only their personal perspective on it. Yeah.
And I get a question for you, because today we saw two different workshops, but going to the same point. When you start the workshops with the people,
about, I thought you mentioned two lectures on the same side.
Today's workshops. We saw two different workshops going to the same point. When you start the workshops with the new students, how do these workshops look like? What's the first?
The very first thing.
The very first thing,
The very first thing would be the threshold with Michael Czechowa. To cross that, to be very aware of your daily life space and how you are, and then to enter a creative acting space. Whatever that is for you, it should be a very safe, open space to explore.
So the same
and that
works.
would be defined by literally like a door threshold. And to step over that into kind of an acting realm, and that would be the very first. It would be a training for that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to make them
It's
safety in their own places, because today, during
Today was
this...
a huge input, I felt, in a very short space.
Yeah, but just after the third try, they said they're feel okay. After they catch the shoulders and
Oh yes, yeah.
take hands up, because 2 times before, Professor Gajewski asked them if you feel free, if you feel safe. Nobody answered this question. After 3rd time, they said yes, I feel. So how much time you need to make them free?
How much time in this?
It's different.
Yeah.
I think also it can be very quick.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's not necessarily, I need 3 months to do X. I mean, of course, to go into anything with any depth, one needs time, but with the right spirit and the right receptivity, you know, I think in 10 minutes one can be in an open, concentrated, working, creative environment, I would say.
It's very important to create at the beginning the common atmosphere. You understand? Atmosphere of unity and trust each other. It makes this bubble. And then operate in the middle of this bubble. I need to say to you that, for instance, I'm working in this way, not just with actors and stage directors. It's very popular, my workshop, how to awake one's creativity among people of different professions. You understand? Because it's not just for artistic aims. It's also for psychotherapy, as you said, for journalists, for social workers, for politicians, and all like this. I would like to add myself comment if possible. These both teachers I met for the first time 25 years ago. You understand? Now it's our 2nd meeting. And for me it was...
After 25?
Yeah, for 25 years ago we met with Jobs and this in Forest Row in England, in Emerson College. For me it was very interesting to... everything what they did was recognizable for one hand, for another hand everything was very original. It's like the same, like to take Sebastian Bach melody and make variations, understand? Like the basic was teaching method of Michael Czechowa, but also it was enlightenment by individualities, and also they mentioned great teachers, Russian teachers, Avsharov and Kokorin, who passed. And I have seen also this mixture, understand? It means that all this Michael Czechowa teachers who worked for a long time, they developed this method, you understand? Like a basis is a silly, but as you said, something new experience, new discoveries of art, adding some new exercises, you understand? Because, for instance, it was Maria Knebel, she was a pupil of Michael Czechowa, both and Stanislavski, and she used the definition. She said it's poetry of pedagogy. Poetry. It's for me. It's my workshop is improvisation. Every time, understand? I know what I would like to reach, but I know how. I always make like just jam session with my students. Always understand, and sometimes discovering people. They ask where you can find this exercise. I said, oh no. We just established it now, you understand? Suddenly, for once, it was sunshine, yes? And suddenly it was big shadows. I said, okay, let's dance with our shadows. Let's make perception just with shadows, you understand? It was very interesting for this communication and the spirit and all like this. It means that Michael Czechowa method is always like improvisation. You always is looking for new patterns, for new tools. how to do it, understand? You must be, and it's the reason why there's no Alzheimer among teachers, you understand?
No what?
No Alzheimer sickness, Alzheimer sickness. And they have very nice memory also, just because in all time you are, and really I am very thankful during these 2 days here. I was working all time, you understand? Because it was in every speech, in every approach, I found something new for me or something I would like to add to my knowledge or to rethink it all like this, you understand? I was involved all time in this process. Really, it was established learner's process. As Scandinavian people said, tusen tack, thousand thanks to you. It really was like some test, you understand, for beginners and also for experienced teachers. We can compare it, and really it's very, very nice today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think for many of
It's about love. It's about love.
It's all about love.
What about, I would like to say some words about love. You know, I think that Michael Chekhov didn't know the theory of Sigmund Freud about Eros and Thanatos. If he knew it, maybe he will add some drops to every sort of life, some drops of sexuality. some drops of sexuality in all sorts of love. Maybe some very small drops. According to Sigmund Freud.
From Czechova.
There's plenty of sexuality in Chekhov's own life, but anyway, that's a separate story. But I guess I would say just maybe for those who aren't so familiar with the technique itself, is remembering actually at its base is something that's common in a way to many artistic practices or other methodologies, is this idea of what it's, the technique is really trying to help the actor understand how to come into the present moment, how to really be here, in touch with myself. I can sense myself, I'm really here, and I'm really with you, and I'm also really able to listen to you and be here. So I'm not pretending to be here, I'm not playing at being here, I just really am here. And I mean, that's a big, massive work. But I would say that's really these intangible principles, or this working with energy. It's about really helping us to land as a basis from which we build our art.
It was Mala Powers who said that the method of Michael Chekhov is not just method of acting; it's method of living.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we also have the experience that a lot of people from different disciplines join the classes. For example, doctors or medicines, to make the right, to get the right inspiration, to make an analysis. Why is he sick, and what can I do with him? Or something like that. Yeah. Architects and so on. Yeah.
But also the new discipline was puppeteers actors for you.
It was very interesting. It was
It's new.
It's absolutely new experience.
Can I just say an observation actually
Yes.
on the students today, which we were just talking about at lunchtime? There was something very open and giving about them, because normally, and I wonder was it coming from the fact that they were in the puppetry faculty, because there didn't seem to be this sense of ego or need to perform within them, and I wonder was it because they're often focused on an object and giving life to an object, that they already have this slight distance or something. Because I think when you go and you're this sense of, from my acting past, if I had an audience watching me doing a lesson, I would be the performer inside that felt I have to achieve something, and I felt that was really wasn't there today, which was beautiful. So I could really sit back and observe the workshops happening. So
and it was especially very visible when the Professor Gajewski took a chair and started to animate them, very open guest, and they animated very focused on the chairs, and it was something different because the group was together animating the chair, and the Professor Gajewski stands aside doing quite different things with the chair. That was a huge difference between drama actors and puppetry actors. And what's your I give you a voice.
I wanted to touch this question about psychotherapy, and also can you see the images I try to add something from the opposite perspective. Because I'm also interested very much in computer technique, and so I wrote a lot of computer applications. So, and also with the synthetic images through virtual reality brought to people. I asked myself, and I was in a study group that was making researches about the question, what effect has these images on human beings? And there's a very interesting theater researcher, scientist from Yale University, Jerome Singer. He was making a lot of researches about the question, what do the movie pictures do to people? And this is 20 years ago. He published a study where he said, you see, in America, when people come to school, they're 6 or 7 years old, they consumed about 4,000 hours television. What is the result? The result that they lose their daydreaming. They have no images anymore. But daydreaming is not only important to make a concept for your next holidays. It's mostly important for managing conflict. You get in a situation, and I've been practicing a lot of martial arts. So, the first thing we have to learn is, can you help me please for a moment? If something is attacking me, just a slow motion, just this, in slow motion, try to beat my head in a slow motion. Yeah?
Try to beat your head in a slow motion.
Yeah, try to beat my head. If I see this, and I make this, I have no chance to react. It will destroy me. So the first thing which we learn is you have to face these forces which will destruct you or destroy you. Yeah? Because then, do it once more please, I make it slowly, then I can come on, then I can go here, or I can go there. But I have to face the evil.
The problem, yes.
Yeah, otherwise it will destroy me, or I can do something else. Do it slow motion, yeah, I can do this. Or I can do this, or whatever. Yeah? But I have to watch it. And last, thank you. They're still alive. We got one more. You're still alive.
That's technique.
So they are losing their fantasy to deal with the situation in their daily life. So we need images to survive. It's not only a thing of be sick or whatever. We have to make concepts. We have to work an idea, and then we have to try and if it's working or not working. This is the one thing. But 2 years ago, we had a huge symposium at Academy of Art in Berlin, and the head of Ernst Busch Akademie, this famous acting school in Germany, Ernst Busch Schule, Wolfgang Engler, he was sitting on the stage. And he said, you see, we have a problem with our students. They can't read Heine Müller texts anymore. And then he asked, there is something wrong. Perhaps they are not in the right place. So now they did a very crazy thing. They created a branch for their faculty, how to act. I said, what? You create an acting branch in an acting school? Because he remarked that the people have no responsibility. They have no responsibility. This is the second problem we have. People are doing something, but they don't watch anymore the result. It's action talk. Our society, yeah? We have something, we throw it away in the garden or whatever, and we don't pay attention what the result will be. This is the moment in the workshop when I said, listen, what is the result of it? So they have no responsibility anymore, and this is also connected with the Wahrnehmung.
Awareness?
Sorry?
Awareness?
Awareness and responsibility as well. So I have to look not only what is attacking me, I also have to look what is the result of my actions. This is very important. And this is disappearing. After this lecture, I asked him, is this only a problem in the Ernst Busch school? And he said, no, we have the problem in all acting schools in Germany. And And we're discussing this, and we don't know how to do this. And then last year we have been in Croatia. We had a teacher retreat from all Chekhov teachers from all over the world. There were 38 from 22 countries, and I made interviews to them. And they said the same thing. The people have on one hand, they are triggered by some images. They have not the power to watch the evil images, but you have to watch them if you will transform them. Otherwise, you cannot transform them. And the other things, they have no responsibility. They are lost. So they have problems all over the world on this question of the images. We can make a symposium about the question of images. It's really a huge subject, of course. Yeah. And of course, the question is how much is destroyed through the virtual realities. I don't know. Yeah. And I personally, last thing which I will add, I had a student. He was watching a lot of horrible movies, and he was sitting there watching the movie Teoria with Brad Pitt, and he was drinking cola and eating chips. And one day, and he wasn't touched by these images. Yeah, it was a great movie. And one day I asked him, "You have to play the herald of Agamemnon when he's coming back from Troja and the fleet was destroyed by the storm, and he saw thousands of dead people swimming in the Mediterranean Sea and the boats and so on. And when he started to speak these lines, he collapsed. And this was an interesting point. I asked myself, why is he able to watch these horrible movies on one hand and not being touched, and he's creating these images himself? Then he suddenly gets totally shocked. We have been working for 4 weeks that he could pronounce one line. It was horrible. And the same thing is was Ernst Busch from Wolfgang Engler from Ernst Busch Academy was describing. They can't read Heine Müller texts anymore. So they cannot face them, perhaps. I don't know. This is an interesting point. So I think it's very important to survive and to make good, to have a vision about future of society or whatever. You need to have images. Otherwise, we will be lost. Yeah. The evil is not disappearing if we don't watch it.
Okay.
It's working, but it's working in its own way. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your answers. So please, let's get 5 minutes break, and we got the last part of our panel. Come on with the film. Almost last part. Come on with the film that was mentioned just before, but not so cruel, but about the film with Michaiła Czechowa, last speech of Benia, and our last meeting. In 5 minutes, we have to just check.